Yo, what is going on, guys? Jack here, and today I've got for you guys another Football Manager experiment, simulation, thingy-bobbly, whatever you want to call it. Today, Tim Sherwood at Aston Villa. So as you can see here, Tim Sherwood, we've moved him to Aston Villa. I've moved him at the start of the season just because realistically, I'm not going to sit simulating the first half of the season to get an accurate league table that we have at the moment. But we're going to see what he could do at Villa, Timmy Sherwood. So yeah, here we have Tim. I think his preferred role is actually a coach as a staff in Football Manager, but you can see here he's got his tactical knowledge of 9. Considering how much he goes on about tactics and banter, it's a little bit disappointing that. And his tactical knowledge isn't great either, so he can't coach tactics, he doesn't know a lot about tactics, but he's determined and he's a good man manager. So anyway, we're going to see what he does at Villa, who he signed. So I think for this first kind of skip into the future, I'm going to go to the end of the first season. Then depending on what happens, if he gets sacked, we'll take things as they come. So anyway, I'll join you guys in a second, and we're going to see how Timmy Boy here has got on during his first season as Aston Villa manager. Okay guys, so it is the end of season 1, it's the 2nd of June 2015. Let's see what Big Tim Man has done. And actually, looking at it, it looks like he got his Continental A licence. He's now doing his Pro licence, so that's a good sign for Tim. His tactical coaching and tactical knowledge have gone up by 1, and looking at it, he's not doing too bad a job in terms of as an individual. But the question is, how is he getting on at Villa? So let's take a look at Villa's progress, and looking at it, Gabriel Bonderhor's the captain, so that's not already boding well. But let's have a look at his transfers first. So he signed Wayne Routledge and Haidara. I assume I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. And he sold Vlaar for £3 million. So Tim, not the best negotiator. Vlaar for £3 million? I kind of feel like that's a pretty poor bit of business. But at least he signed Wayne Routledge, 30 years old. Oh dear, they're not the best transfers, are they? And that's about all he did on the transfer front. Oh, and he loaned out Kieran Clark, which again is a little bit odd. He basically got rid of all their defenders, it would seem. Let's see how that kind of affected Villa then in the league. Go to the English Premier Division, and looking at it, they finished 11th, which I'm sure most Villa fans would take at the moment in real life. If we look at their team just quickly, actually we'll look at their tactics. So they're playing a 4-4-2. Or at least that's what it's showing for me. But in terms of that actual team, who has been performing well for them? So on the goal scoring front, Benteke and Weimann getting 27 goals between them, and Gabriel Bonderhor getting another 11. So they've actually performed way above what you might expect them to do in FM. Benteke, obviously a very good player, but he's never necessarily outstanding despite his attributes. Very often I've seen him flop or just get injured a lot, but this year he's had a good year. Looking at it, he's scored 14 goals in the league, but his average rating isn't that great, so it's kind of maybe a case of he's either incredible for them or he's just kind of average, and that might explain a few of their defeats. Weimann, on the other hand, is actually injured and out for 3 to 4 months, so that's not good news. And yeah, he, again, not the best average rating. If we look at the average ratings, top performers this year, Akore at centre-back. So, of course, I mentioned the fact they got rid of 2 of their centre-backs. It looks like Akore's been doing some work for them, and Lowton and at least Sissoko stepping up. Now, as a Liverpool fan, I don't really know what to make of Sissoko, because in the one here he was at us, on loan he wasn't that great, and you can see here he's actually done really well for, well, I say really well, he's done quite well for Villa, shall we say. He's been one of their better performers, but in general, those average ratings are really poor. If we look at their schedule, we don't want to spend too long, obviously, looking at stuff, but they had some pretty hefty defeats. A few narrow wins. They beat Chelsea, which I guess is kind of impressive. But looking at it, they lost in the Capital One Cup 3rd round and the FA Cup 3rd round to Middlesbrough. So, not ideal for Tim. And a lot of their wins seem to be 2-0 or just by 1 goal. There weren't too many games where they won by a comfortable margin. But anyway, we'll go forward a few more years, I guess. We'll see what Tim Sherwood's done. And yeah, I'll join you guys in just a second, I guess. Okay guys, so I'm back. We're actually 3 years in the future now. You can see here, Sherwood's actually quite, kind of improved as a manager in a lot of areas, which is quite good for him. He's still the Villa manager, which is incredible. So looking like a long-term replacement to Paul Lampert. And actually looking at the league positions, obviously they got 11th in the year we covered before. And then they've got a 10th and another 10th place finish. And then this year, they finished 10th again. So, really consistent for Villa. Let's have a look at the transfers. Obviously, I don't want to spend too long going through the details, but we'll have a look here. So, he got rid of Darren Bent on a free. Were there any big sales? Looks like there might have been one big one that I just can't see. Is it evading me? Ali Sissoko for £11 million. Well, Lazio got mugged off, is all I'm going to say there. Looking at the signings, lots of signings I can't say I've heard of, if I'm completely honest. Sean Morrison, obviously, I've heard of. Same with Fallon. But Osmar from Sal, can't say I've heard of him. Robbie Cruz from Australian. So looking like they're getting in a load of guys from the Asia continent and the Asia Football Association. And they've got a few Germans in as well. I can't say I've heard of any of these players. What did they do the next year? Let's have a look. Kolarov in. That's kind of a good signing. Sigurdsson. Oh, that's not the Sigurdsson. That's... I can't say his name, but it's the fake one, the Icelandic guy. And they signed Grant Hanley, who's one of my favourite players. And they also got in Josh Brilliante, who's brilliant. It might just be his main... What a name Brilliant is. What a brilliant name. Who else? Did they let anyone go? They sold £13 million worth of players. They sold Vyman to QPR. I can only assume he had a fair few injuries. Akore went for £9 million to Juve, and he's kind of one of Villa's great prospects in the game, so he did really well, and they got some pretty decent money for him. And then last year, and that's actually this year that we're looking at, they signed Huntelaar for 300k. That's kind of impressive. Not the best player, Huntelaar, but he can finish. They got in Ibe from Liverpool, who looks like he's been an okay player for them when he has played. In fact, no, that's a lie. He looks like he's been terrible. They signed Dwight Gale, who I've seen do some crazy stuff in FM, but you can see here they signed him for £3 million and he's done nothing this year for them, so that's pretty disappointing. Did Huntelaar do anything? He got 5 goals in 16. That's not great, really, is it? And they also brought in Pasalic on loan. So they made some interesting signings. On the outs, they just let a lot of players go on freeze. They didn't sell anyone. If we look at their tactics, it still says they were playing a 4-4-2. Who was their top performer this year? It was Zlatko Janozovic, who I think they signed a few years ago. If we look, £4.7 million paid for him, but he looks like he was a big player for them this year. And their goals, they didn't have as many goals this year. Benteke getting 10 and 17, but looks like he may well have been injured. Yeah, as you can see, he's been out for actually quite a lot of games. Out for 4 months at the start of this season. So that probably, rather the start of this year in this season. So that was probably a big miss for them. Well, anyway, I'm going to go forward once more. We'll see what happens to Tim. If he keeps managing, maybe we'll do a second episode. But yeah, I'll join you guys in just a second and we'll see how Timmy Boy is faring and see if he maybe makes a step up with Villa or, you know, maybe moves on. Okay, guys, so I've got some tragic news. Unfortunately, Tim's been sacked. Apparently, he just wasn't up to the job, aged 50. His tactical knowledge and his tactic training, just not enough. Let's have a look at where it went wrong for him. So, if we look at his achievement, where do we want to go? Landmarks, I guess. We can look here. He got sacked in December of this year. So, Villa not doing very well. He was sacked. Where did Villa end up finishing? Let's have a quick look. Villa, they got relegated. Wow. Tim, where did it go wrong? Let's have a look at the past positions. And where were Villa when he was sacked? So he was sacked around the halfway mark, so they were definitely struggling. They were right down there in the league, and you can see they were out of the relegation zone for a bit, but they didn't play very well, did they? That's quite surprising. What transfer deals were done in the summer that could have made that happen? So they sold Jack Grealish, who's like one of Villa's best young prospects in game at the start. And they sold him for £11 million. And he was the only really kind of huge sale. And it looks like they reinvested it. They got Sam Byronman, who's a pretty good wing back. Who else? They got Chadley in, who of course starts at Spurs in game. A few other names that I've heard of, like Polly, but they haven't got any huge names here. Sanya as well, they signed. A lot of older players. How many goals? They actually had a few goal scorers as well. Valentin Stocker getting some goals as a midfielder. Benteke again. Was he injured more? Not for that longer a period. He just didn't play very well. Only 8 goals in 32 games. And Villa going down. Who's their new manager? Rijkaard. Right, well, he's got a job on his hands. Looking at it, Guzan's still playing at 34, so that's kind of impressive. I actually thought he was a little bit older than that, but nevertheless, that's still pretty impressive for him. But I don't know how to feel about this Tim being sacked and them going down, because it looked like he was doing quite well, but in the end, he's just another Lambert, at least according to FM. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you wanted me to maybe do a video of Tim Sherwood and where he goes next, I can do, although I don't know how interesting that will be. If you've got any other suggestions or other experiments like this one you'd like to see, leave them down in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, of course, smash the like button. If this is the first video you're watching of mine here on YouTube and you want to see some more Football Manager simulations and other FM videos, you can find them all on my channel. Hit the subscribe button, you get notified whenever a new video comes your way. And other than that, it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.